Hey there everyone, Mazarok here, and today I want to talk about the 9.2 Guardian Druid Guide. This is going to cover covenants, legendaries, talents, tier sets, all of that fun stuff. But before we get into it, please like, comment, subscribe. I cannot do this without you. My goal for the month is 2K subs, and it has just been growing exponentially. I'm flabbergasted by the amount of support that everyone has given me, and I want to thank you so much for it. There's a Twitch link down below if you want to see me stream. I stream, as well as a community Discord link if you want to ask any more questions about what you heard here or any of the other guides or tanking in general, or just any WoW questions you have, or if you just want to come hang out in a positive community, hit that Discord link down below. Let's get into it. First thing to cover is tier sets, because a lot of the things around Bear in 9.2 revolve around the Bear tier sets. So, 2 set. Casting Barkskin causes you to Berserk for 4 seconds, Berserk/Incarn. 4-piece. While Berserk, you radiate cosmic damage to nearby enemies, and you heal yourself every 0.8 seconds. This is a very strong tier set. It does a lot of damage, so if you look at the damage breakdown here, this was in Spires of Ascension. Architect's Aligner dealt 20% of my damage, and there's not a lot of big pulls in Spires. Spires is typically one of my lowest DPS dungeons as a tank, just due to the lack of, kind of really big pulls or anything like that. It's hard to double pull a lot of things, especially once you get past the second boss. There's a lot of single target with the 3 angels, unless you're doing a triple angel pull, which is fairly difficult to pull off, so most pugs don't do it. But this is a very strong tier set, even after the nerf. Now, my opinion here is the nerf was a little bit too heavy-handed. Personal opinion, I think it was too heavy-handed, but it's still a very strong tier set, and Bear has a lot of fun things that you can do with it. Up next is Covenant options, because the Covenant options, I want to talk about them first because they can affect legendary choices later. Covenant options, personal, you can really flex as a Bear if you want. You can go Night Fae, Necrolord, Venthyr, or Kyrian, your choice. It's just which kind of playstyle do you want? What does your team need? Do you need a Venthyr in your party? Do you need a Necrolord in your party? You can kind of flex through there with very little downsides to each. In fact, you can gain some upsides to each depending on what it is. My personal choice is Night Fae. I really like Convoke the Spirits. I like Balance, Chicken Weaving, Cat Weaving, hitting Convoke, doing a bunch of damage, going back to Bear form. It's a really fun playstyle that I really enjoy. But you can also choose Necrolord. Necrolord giving you the big Fleshcraft shield, especially like I'm item level 265 right here, as you can see, 264.75, and I have 110k health. Add another 7 item levels to that, and you can really have a lot of base health as a tank. Especially, I think that Bear has one of the largest base health pools in the game, all things considered. Now, of course, Brewmaster tier set, you can get like 200, 250k if you play it right, but base health, Bear has a lot. Bear chonky. So the Fleshcraft is absolutely huge there. And the Adaptive Swarm button for Necrolord is very fun to press, a very strong single target, so it's very good on Tyrannical weeks, if that's what you so choose to play, and it gives you a good defensive option there too. It's just an all-around good, fun button to press, and it is a good defensive covenant. Venthyr is a strong covenant as long as you line up Incarn with your Ravenous Frenzy, both being 3-minute cooldowns baseline. Using those two together, you're one of the most dangerous Apex Predators on the planet, for 30 seconds every 3 minutes. But you want to make sure that you have them constantly lined up, and I mention this now because of legendary choices we're going to talk later. And then of course there's Kyrian. If you choose to empower a DPS, you can find the specific stats that you need as well, depending on covenants. This requires a little bit more attentiveness. It's not just, hey, I'm going to empower you and be done with, because I mean you don't want critical strike, for example. You would prefer haste or mastery reverse, depending on what you need and what they need as well, right? It's symbiosis. So, and the file is always a very, very strong, removing bleeds and curses and all that fun stuff whenever you need it. So don't discount Kyrian just yet, but you can really flex. But my personal opinions, I really like Night Fae, but like I said, Venthyr is very, very fun. And Necrolord's a good single target, improve your single target damage as well as increase your defensiveness. Next, we're going to talk legendary options. So if you're gonna have to make one legendary in 9.2 and that's it, that's all you're going to afford, it's all you're going to invest, I would go with Legacy of the Sleeper. So what this does is Incarnation grants 25% increased damage on top of the other bonuses. It grants 15% leech and immunity effects to control that control the loss of your character. Super strong. And its cooldown is reduced by 30 seconds. This is the big thing here. This reduces Incarn down to 2.5 minute cooldown instead of 3 minutes. So if you're running Venthyr, you're probably not going to want to run Legacy of the Sleeper. It is still very strong, but you're going to hold onto Incarn for 30 seconds to make sure that they line up properly. So maybe not something you want to be doing, but it's something you can do. Of course, it's your choice. But Legacy of the Sleeper and Ravenous Frenzy combined equals very big DPS in AoE pools. And I mean very big DPS in AoE pools. It just requires you to be attentive, and they don't always line up, so you need to hold. That's another strong option that you do have as a legendary. Now this is more defensive, but very strong nonetheless, is Ursoc's Fury. Remember, this has been the go-to legendary for Bear for the last 2 seasons, but what happens is Legacy of the Sleeper actually increases the damage of your tier set. That 25% increased damage also applies to your tier set, making it very, very strong. But Ursoc's Fury, remembered, is better defensively, sorry. So Thrash has a 15% chance to trigger an additional Thrash, and Thrash grants you an Absorb Shield for 75% of the damage it deals. This is one that I will wear on Necrotic weeks without any question. Because I have never, aside from this tank, gotten to 99 stacks of Necrotic before, other than Bear. You pop Incarn, you just go, you're at 100% health with 99 stacks of Necrotic, and you're just not taking damage. It's wonderful. Now, when Incarn runs out, you want to run away very quickly, because 99 stacks of Necrotic, you gon' get hurt. You're going to inspect the floor pretty quickly. But this allows you to stay in pulls a lot longer and remain defensive a lot longer. Another strong option for single target is Deep Drought of Focus, where your Moonfire, Rake, Rip, or Rejuve are active on a single target. Their effects are increased by 40%. This is a very strong single target legendary, but this, unless you're min-maxing your damage for certain specific fights, this isn't one that I would rush to make. And then the other one here, which is, I don't have it, when I have been rating this tier, it's been Legacy of the Sleeper, but you can go Natural Order's Will. If you're progressing on Mythic, now I'm not going to be progressing on Mythic on my Bear, so I'm not super worried about this, but Barkskin reduces the damage by an additional 10%, making it 30%, and when it begins or ends in Bear form, you gain a stack of Iron Fur and Frenzied Regen. Very strong defensive ability, because Frenzied Regen is a great heal, 32% health over 3 seconds, and increases your healing received by 20%. And Iron Fur is your stackable active mitigation, which increases your armor by 1,600, 1,700? Yeah, 1,700. And you can get 7, 8, 9. My max, just spamming this button, is 10. 10 stacks of just go. And gaining that amount of armor is huge. You do really feel the tankiness of stacked Iron Fur. So if you're looking for something more defensive in Raid, Natural Orders will be your better option. In Mythic Plus, this is it's a fairly defensive option, but is outperformed by Ursoc's Fury, Remember, and Legacy of the Sleeper, just due to damage and things like that. Because if we look at the breakdown here, now this is a Spires of Ascension healing that I did. Leech was 16% of my healing, which is huge. Frenzied Regen was 25%. And Architect's Aligner was 12. These are all things that you can just get in and going together by using Legacy of the Sleeper or Ursoc's Fury, Remembered. Now, if you use Ursoc's, the Absorb Shield is going to be your maximum amount of healing. So just something to keep attention to. Legacy of the Sleeper has been ever since I made it and I've been running it in 15s and having a blast with it, my damage has gone up, my threat has been better. You're not as pseudo-immune to everything. You do take damage, so you do need to pump a Frenzied Regen in from time to time. But that's really not bad. You just got the healing from your tier set will generally keep you alive. So just something to keep in mind and move forward. As we're talking tier sets and defensives, when you pop Incarn, if you're in trouble, you can pop Barkskin to give you that 20% DR while you're in Incarn, and it will increase your Incarn duration by 4 seconds. So something you can do, you can open up with a pull by just charging in or running in, hitting Barkskin, getting your 4 seconds of Incarn, gaining threat, and then popping Incarn if you want to go afterwards, because with the 30-second cooldown, we'll explain how to get that in a bit. You can indeed Barkskin, Incarn, Barkskin on really big pulls, because you can have this first, and then you can pop Incarn, and then you will have it again when Incarn is done. So 38 seconds of Incarn is very, very strong and super good for like large AoE pulls and things like that. Ravenous Frenzy pulls, all those big things, whatever you're doing. So that is legendaries. Now let's cover soul conduits. There's a couple of options that you do have, and you can play around with them depending on your playstyle, but there's a couple that are kind of, I don't want to say mandatory, but highly suggested. Of course, there's unchecked aggression. You increase your haste whenever you enter berserk form, in bear form. I don't need to explain why this is so good. It's absolutely fantastic. Your haste increases during Barkskin and Incarn, and allowing you to thrash a lot more. It just increases your overall, defensiveness, offensiveness, and all that fun stuff. Another potency conduit that I choose is whatever Covenant option there is available. I think they actually are all fairly strong, and I enjoy having them. So this is kind of, makes fun with your playstyle. And if you're not, another thing that you can do with Night Fae is Barkskin, Convoke. It will increase the damage of your Convoke, which is very, very nice. So if you like that Cat Weave, Owl Weave, or whatever have you not, you can Barkskin, hit Convoke, do a bunch of damage in whatever form you are. Very, very nice, and it increases all of that fun stuff. A few endurance conduits, because these ones are kind of the ones that are a little bit more choice-based. Toughest Bark is the one that I highly suggest you put in once you get your tier set. Barkskin's cooldown is reduced by, now it's 21 seconds at 265. Insanely strong, which is why you want to try and get that Barkskin down to 30 seconds. If you have a 278 conduit, or whatever the next conduit up, I do believe it brings it down to a flat 30 seconds. Innate Resolve, this is one that I choose because I tank so much that I'm very well aware of my health. I like making sure that healers don't have to touch me, and I like making sure that I can just take care of myself. This is why I've enjoyed playing Blood DK, Paladin, Monk, Vengeance Demon Hunter, and Bear have been very, very fun for me this patch. Is pretty much zero reliance on healers. You can take care of yourself. You can survive pretty much everything unless things go horrendously wrong. And you're very, very strong, especially in 15s where, this is kind of the whole goal of the channel, is to get people into tanking and taking their way to KSM. That's why I kind of started all of this. But if you so choose, you can go with Well-Honed Instincts. This is 84 seconds at 226. When you fall below 40% health, you cast Frenzied Regen on yourself automatically. Very good defensive cooldown. Very good defensive soul conduit on a cooldown. But it's got that's a minute and a half almost. And to me, I would much rather keep track of my Frenzied Regen stacks and make sure that I'm okay. And with the amount of healing that you get from Incarn and Barkskin, I find, to me, this one has lost a lot of... It's lost a lot of its importance, I would say, or its prominence, but it's still a very strong defensive if you just kind of want to rely on this and not yourself. Layered Main is another one that I've seen a lot of people use to gain extra Iron for stacks, Iron for being your active mitigation. We discussed that earlier. When you hit it once, you have a chance to apply a second one automatically. This is fairly strong, although it is very RNG, which is kind of the reason why I've stopped using it. But if you just want to make sure that you always have as much Iron Fur stacks as possible, pop that in and you're good to go. One of the finesse conduits that I really enjoy, and that's because I really enjoy movement speed and getting to the next pack quicker, getting people moving quicker, getting people moving out of trouble quicker. I basically always hit Stampeding Roar. The 1 minute cooldown, it is, in a 30-minute dungeon, it's usually pressed 29 to 30 times. All of the time. I love this button so much, and I think incredibly rated, increasing the movement speed of all players by 60%. This can allow players to get out of trouble and move away from tentacles and Plaguefall. You have so many different options for this, but this right here can save you a lot of time in a dungeon run just by using Stampeding Roar to get to the next pack, and you're just constantly moving forward and progressing forward and chain pulling, and everything's going a lot better. So this is kind of the setup that I have here. Naya is... I don't have enough mastery right now. I want more. So this here with Grove Invigoration, it's an easy way for me to get a couple of extra mastery and make me a little bit happier of a camper there. Stats. Haste is being your most important stat. Allows you to do everything better in Incarn. Just gets you more thrashes, gets you more globals off, especially since Frenzied Regen isn't on the global cooldown. Sorry, it shouldn't be, but it is. Being able to get your global cooldown down quicker, meaning in trouble you can hit Frenzied Regen a lot faster, which is very, very nice. Versatility and haste. Now again, like I said, I'm not happy with my stat weights. I've been trying, but I've been very unlucky. I'm trying to get more verse. I'm trying to get more mastery. Unfortunately, critical strike is just very, very prominent in a lot of the gear that I've been getting. So I'm having trouble bringing down my crit and boosting my verse and mastery. In order, I would say it's haste, versatility, mastery as per importance, but versatility and mastery are fairly close, but versatility does eke out ahead a little bit. A tertiary stat that you do want to be looking out for that is very, very strong is Leech. So I have a base 4.9% Leech with Legacy of the Sleeper and Incarn active. It's almost 20%, and as you can see here, Leech was my second highest damaging heal. Was my second highest heal throughout the dungeon. And this is pure passive healing, which is very, very nice. So something to keep out for there. I find speed is nice, avoidance is nice. Avoidance is always very nice. But if you can just constantly heal yourself back up, the Leech is really good in all scenarios. And especially with the Legacy of Sleeper, it kind of pushes it up a little bit more to try and get you a little bit more. So if you are looking for a tertiary stat, I think Leech is definitely one of the better options. Let's talk talent setups. So, Blood Frenzy is my go-to. Thrash generates 2 rage each time it deals damage. Incarn, Barkskin, you're constantly hitting Thrash. It's got a 0 cooldown. You just constantly spam Thrash. This is going to help you get a lot of stacks of Iron Fur up whenever you need it. And I cannot stress how tanky you feel as a bear with 6 to 8 stacks of Iron Fur up. It really is an extra defensive, is very, very nice. Wild Charge is my go-to here, although if you are looking for a 30% heal, Renewal is a very strong option. I've just played Warrior too much, and I like having a charge. So if I do have the option to take a charge, I will take that option to take a charge. Also a very good way for you to get in quickly, and charge, Barkskin, boom, you have threat, you're done. One of the things that I've noticed with the tier set is it has helped bear threat a lot this season. Now, let's talk this 30 row, because this one here, this is definitely the most important. Restoration Affinity is my general go-to. Set it and forget it. I enjoy it. Ursoc's Vortex is my kiting tool of choice. 1 minute cooldown, you pop it, you start walking away. Nothing can touch you. You can clear stacks of Necrotic easily. Very super nice. Of course, it doesn't work on every opponent. If an opponent can't be CC'd, then they can still chase you down, but it is a nice, helpful tool. Especially like Resto Druids that use this in keys. Oh my god, I love Ursoc's Fury. Ursoc's Vortex, sorry. Feral Affinity, if you are into cat weaving a lot. Because I know some people are like, oh, just take Feral Affinity and do more damage. But if you don't go into cat form and deal cat damage, this is going to waste. All you're doing is increasing your movement speed by 15%. But if you like cat weaving and you go into kitty form, you hit Convoke, or whatever, you do your buttons, you can really increase your DPS this way. Very strong ability. Although, one thing I did forget about the Restoration Affinity is Izera's Gift. You heal for 3% of your maximum health every 5 seconds. And if we go here, third amount of healing done below Architect's Aligner, which is the tier set at 13.4%. Almost a million healing. That's completely passive. So if we look here, completely passive healing, 26%. Right here, the Leech and Izera's Gift. I haven't done it, just... You take damage and you start healing some back up. Very, very strong. Balance Affinity is the best way to use Convoke in Nightway. I don't want to say best way, but is the highest DPS gain. So if you have a choice in raid or anything like that, and you're not you're not trying to play as defensive as possible and you start trying to play a little bit more offensive, you can go Balance Affinity, and while your tank has, it's your tank's turn to, tank, you hit Cat Form, Convoke, machine gun a bunch of spells, boom, just did a bunch of damage, you can go back to Bear and, go back to being a tank. But this is your best way to increase your damage all around with Convoke. Cat is very, very close, but does require a lot more know-how. Like I've said before, and I've said this for a long time with Bear, Bear is one of the easiest tanks to get into and play, but is one of the hardest to master. And the weaving and the affinities is definitely why, because you want to set this up before you go into a certain dungeon. You want to know which one of these you want, which one of these you're going to be using, and then you actually have to use them. If you're not going into owl form, all you're gaining is 3% range on all of your 3-yard range on all your abilities, which is strong, but I mean, really, you're losing out on so much. Although Typhoon is very nice for Sanguine weeks, by the way. Just booping things out of Sanguine. Very, very nice. So, but if you're not going into owl form and you're not, hitting a bunch of owl form buttons, you're losing out on a lot. Same thing with Feral Affinity. So, if you're kind of just, I want to stay in Bear and I don't want to do anything outside of Bear, I'd go Restoration. But if you're looking to eke out more damage and, really do get some more pumper numbers in there, Balance or Cat Affinity are your way to go. 35 row. Now, if you're a Balance or Feral, Heart of the Wild, very, very strong. The one thing I don't like about Heart of the Wild with Restoration Affinity is for example, in Mythic Plus, for you to do all of that extra healing, you have to not be taking damage, because outside of Bear form, you don't have as much health and you get wrecked. So it's something that is very situational, but it can be fairly good. But this is way better used as a DPS cooldown for Heart of the Wild and not a off-healing cooldown unless you have an extra tank. For example, if in Raid, if there's a scenario where, your tank has threat, but you need a lot of extra off-healing to get through a phase, but you're not in danger of yourself, having to get threat or anything, Heart of the Wild, Restoration Affinity, very strong. My Mythic Plus option is Mighty Bash. I mean, come on. 4 seconds done. Not much else to say. Incarnation is your general go-to for most content. It replaces Berserk. Berserk or Incarn gives you an extra 30% increased health. The last 30 seconds. Thrash is just a global cooldown ability. Insanely strong DPS, defensive, offensive, and is great in any multi-target scenario. Now, if you are going into single-target scenarios and you want to change things up a bit, Incarn does lose value in pure single-target fights. But, I mean, it isn't useless. But you could go with better options. Galactic Guardians with Deep Drought. The Moonfire legendary that I talked about is a strong option as well in pure single-target scenarios. As well as Soul of the Forest. Mangle will generate more rage and deals 25% more damage with Soul of the Forest. This is going to give you more rage. This is going to give you a lot more rage throughout the fight, allowing you to upkeep more stacks of Iron Fur during the duration, but is less bursty. So if you need burst defensiveness, it would be Incarn, but Soul of the Forest and pure single target can be a very strong option for you. Earth Warden has been the play here for the first 2 seasons, but now with the tier set, getting Barkskin down is the name of the game here. So you want to go Survival of the Fittest. This decreases the cooldown, reduces the cooldown of Barkskin and Survival Instincts by 33%. So this gives you your Survival Instincts charge 2-minute recharge. Strong ability, reduces all damage you take by 50% for 6 seconds. 2-minute recharge time. Chef's Kiss, love it, but Barkskin here is what you're really after. This can go down to a 32-second cooldown, insanely strong, and when it works with the tier set and everything else. So that once you get your 4-piece tier, go to Survival of the Fittest, you will not regret it. Last row here, your options, Rend and Tear. This can be a set it and forget it in all content if you do want. Each stack of Thrash reduces the target's damage to you by 2% and increases the damage they take by 2%. So this goes up to 6% with 3 stacks of Thrash on them. All around very strong. Don't need to explain that a little bit further. In pure single target scenarios, though, you can go with Pulverize, which on a 45-second cooldown, it will consume 2 stacks of Thrash and reduce the damage the enemy deals to you by 35%. This is single target because it literally applies this to your target, but is very strong in single target scenarios. So something to keep in mind if you're, maybe Halandrous, you want an extra defensive. Pulverize, not bad at all. Really, really strong, especially, like I said, in that single target scenario. A few trinkets to look out for. Codex of the First Technique, I have been unlucky, and a Blood Spattered Scale are very strong. The Shard of Enhilde's Aegis, again, a very strong trinket there. For Sigil, the versatility bump, very, very nice, especially in Mythic Plus, where it does line up. If you're not getting 2.5 minute cooldown, every 2 incarns, you can line that up with the first Sigil, giving you a big versatility bump while you're in incarn, just wrecking damage. Very, very nice. Although the first sigil does have a 5-minute cooldown. There are other trinkets available. I'm going to link a trinket video down below where I explain most and all of the tank trinkets and kind of what certain uses they have and things like that. Because by the end of this expansion, there's a lot to choose from. So, maybe you might get a trinket and you're like, oh, this is garbage. Maybe not. It might have certain niche uses that you want to keep it onto. Might be a little bit better than what you think. So just something to think about there. Aside from that, that is the 9.2 Guardian Druid guide. I hope you guys had an absolute blast. The beginner's guide for Guardian Druid is, there's a link for that down below as well. This is the last of the 9.2 Shadowlands tank guides. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of the support, for everything you guys have done for this and making this happen. Thank you so much. I hope you guys are enjoying tanking in 9.2. I have just had an absolute blast. All the tanks have been stupid fun to play. Thank you very much for listening. Have yourself a good day.